Hey, everybody. Welcome to another segment of the Real Michael Pittman Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Pittman. And joining us on the show today are some of Springfield's finest aldermen, aldermen, and alderwomen. First of all, Alderwoman Lakeisha Purchase, who represents Ward 5 in Springfield, Illinois. Alderman Roy Williams, who represents Ward 3 in Springfield, Illinois. And Alderman Shawn Gregory, who's been on the show before, represents Ward 2 in Springfield, Illinois. First of all, I want to say thank you all for agreeing to come on the show in short notice. I just contacted you all yesterday, and you all got together and made this thing happen, so I really appreciate it that you guys taking the time to answer some of the questions that I have. Normally, to be honest with you, when I do a lot of my shows, there have been a lot of shows that I do. I don't do a lot of Springfield shows, but when I saw what you guys just did in terms of starting Aldermanic Black Caucus, I thought that was worth national attention in my respect, in terms of being able to work together for the betterment of your community and for the betterment of the Black community. So thank you all for coming on the show, and I have several questions I'd like to ask you all. And when I ask the question, it'll be actually the same question for each one of you all. So if you all want to answer it individually, and I'm sure there'll be some follow-up questions based on the way and some of the answers that you give me. So thank you all. Well, first of all, I just want to get started. And for our listeners out there that are not from Springfield, who don't know a lot about Springfield, I just want you guys to, Lakeisha, I'll let you start first, just to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so Mike, like you said, I'm Lakeisha Purchase. I represent Ward 5, which is me and Alderman Gregory split a little bit of the downtown. I have everything north of Capitol, and then as you go underneath the viaduct and get to the actual Capitol, I take back over. So Enos Park, Vinegar Hill, Lincoln Park, and there's a newer expansion of my district that goes out to Park Street, which is behind SHG. And then I was born and raised in Maywood, Illinois. I went to Proviso East, and college I went to SIU Carbondale. I'm a Saluki, go Dogs. I have a major in political science with a minor in speech communication. And what led me to Springfield was becoming a Vince DiMuzio intern. And I selected the Illinois Department of Transportation to go for my internship and became permanent. Now, if you listen to my godmother, she always says she was supposed to come on back home so I could, help her get acclimated here and eventually take over my position. And she's the state senator and also the majority leader for the Senate. And her district is the 4th district, my hometown in Maywood. But I decided to stay in Springfield and get my feet a little wet. And it's no secret, I've known Shawn before I became a politician, and also Roy. Roy actually was my treasurer when I ran for Capitol Township. And Doris Turner is the one who gave me the idea, because I wanted to do Park District at first. And she said, why don't you try Capitol Township? And I was like, what is Capitol Township? So as I learned it, I started educating the community about Capitol Township. And this was the first in over 42 years that we had a Democrat to not only win the board, but to be the top vote getter in it. So I had 2 terms of that, and then got appointed in the middle of my term to become the Ward 5 Alderwoman, and recently just got through an election, and I am happy and honored to continue to serve the residents of Ward 5 and happy to be here.
Okay, well, thank you, Lakeisha. Roy, you want to go next and tell us about Roy?
Roy the boss.
Born and raised Springfield, Illinois, product of 186 schools. Left here, went to the military, served 12 years in the military, had some health issues, had to come out, came out, earned my BA, Western Illinois University in Macomb, and then the MA came through pretty much UIS. Interned with the State Legislative Black Caucus. Served several positions, Executive Director of Illinois Association Minorities in Government, Legislative Director of IDNR, Department of Natural Resources. And I currently just, do this for fun, I guess. Some people asked me, I was president of Faith Coalition at the time. I also am still currently president of the Ernie Bankhead Neighborhood Association, and serve on several boards, different community boards. So that's what keeps me involved and keeps me doing what I do. So being an alderman just allows me to do it on a larger scale than what I was already doing. So that's pretty much it, Mike. Here I am today.
All righty. And Shawn, I know you've been on the show before, and some of my listeners do know about you. But for those who didn't see your show, can you also tell us about Shawn again?
Sure. My name is, of course, Alderman Shawn Gregory. I represent Ward 2, which is the minority majority ward here in our city. I'm not born and raised in Springfield, but I've been here since I was a very young child. Come up here from Madison, Venice area through foster care. Stay with some great families. I always like to say that this community raised me, and so sort of saved me. So I was a coach for a long time, 9 years, coached 2 sports, football and basketball out in our community. Served on several boards, from just our work in the community, director of various camps and tournaments for youth as I was coaching for a long time. So done a lot of things, got a lot of wide range of experience, and I try to take those things to our community and in my everyday role. So serving this seat is particularly always a challenge, right? Because we're the poorest ward and we got a lot of issues, but that's what drives me every day, to really dig in and try to get to the root causes of it, and put some policy in place, funding, whatever we need to really change it, and quite frankly, in a hurry, as I always say.
Okay, so thanks, Shawn. I got several questions I'd like to ask you all, and again, like I stated earlier, it'll be the same questions for each one of you. So, Lakeisha, you want to go first? Or from the questions I have is that what compelled you to want to be an alderman in Springfield?
You want me to go first?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Again, I would say this is not something new to me. As a child, I'm the daughter of a union president for the Letter Carriers Association. All of the efforts that we do in the community with my dad, that just kept me being a public servant, being with my godmother, Senate Majority Leader Lightford, learning the ins and outs of how she is the voice for the community. So I would say since I was a kid, it was kind of instilled in my blood, and that's all I knew was to be on the campaign trail, be on her women's committee, go out in the community and be an athlete. So that was like most of my childhood life and high school. And then it furthered my education when I got to college, and just to come to Springfield. And as you're talking to the 3 of us, we made history. So it's 3 African-American people on city council, and that hadn't happened before. And now more than ever, we're more united than to not be divided at all. We've had, me and Shawn is no secret. Me and Shawn is like brother and sister. We done had our differences and have exploded publicly, but we then brought it right back around and had good conversations, and like we're closer now than ever. So I think working with a group of people who are like-minded encouraged me. Being able to speak up for my community, and also knowing the background that I went through in college to understand how government works encouraged me to step out in the forefront. Mike, it's not easy being a young Black woman to put yourself out there in front of people. Nothing's a secret. You can't hide anything. You have to always be transparent. And it was just something that I said I was ready to commit and do. And I also wanted other girls that look like me, that's younger, to see that they can do this at a young age too. So that encouraged and motivated me to run for office.
Okay, thank you. Roy, what about you?
You're on mute.
We can't hear you.
You're on mute.
You're on mute, Roy. Roy, we can't hear you.
Okay, you can hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I said initially I had one of my good friend, Frank McNeil, to run. I wanted him to come back, kind of like Chuck Redpath came back. So I said when this position opened up, I initially was supporting Frank McNeil to come and apply to take Doris's place. When he didn't do it, that's when people started asking me, pretty much is how I got involved. Faith Coalition asked me, my neighborhood association that I was the president of asked me, as well as now some of them that I represent now had asked me. I was always doing the work, like I said, just on a smaller level through Faith Coalition, empowering people, to advocate for themselves and teaching them how collectively you get much more done. So that put me in the community, that kept me going, and that just motivated me to go ahead and put my name in. And when I put my name in, if you let the former mayor who made the decision tell it, he said you just roll straight through the top, so there I was, and that's how I got here. So, and I'm happy to be here.
Oh, okay. And Shawn, what about you?
Well, as the senior alderman of these two, but no, I was out in the community. I had took over Juneteenth for 1 in a Million Inc. At that time, and I really wanted to try to build it and stuff. And I was frustrated with how some things support wise was coming from the city, and the former Alderman Senor was running, and I said, you know what, I met with a young lady named Lisa Badger, and I said, you know what, we had a good conversation about what it would take as far as people and help and things of that nature. And I said, you know what, I think I'm going to do it, and I really didn't have no idea what politics was or how much of a beast this is, especially for the community that I represented. It has been one of the most rewarding things that I have done. No secret. My first race I won by 1 vote. It was a hard fought victory for sure that I thought I won in the first place. I think we proved that. And then my second term I was unopposed, and it's crazy, but 2 years in this term, and then you have one more, and I'll be termed out. So that's why every day I try to make sure we get things done. But ultimately, I think over my time and while I've been here, I think that I've proven that to push for change for our community and sort of get some funding out there to our community that has been lacking for so long for various reasons. Not that others didn't try and things of that nature, but we're starting to see some good things done, and we want to keep that going.
Okay. Having said that, what are some of the major challenges that you all face in your ward? Whoever wants to go first is fine.
Well, I'll let them go first because mine is long.
Yeah, we'll just rotate it,
Sure. Yeah.
So you just call it Mike and keep us rotate.
No.
Okay.
If I say though, I say all 3 of our wards, have unique needs, but very similar needs. We all have a significant amount of lead water pipes. We both have a nice amount. I have the most a minority or black population or poor areas in our community, along with Ward 6 as well that meets up with us. So our needs often intertwine, whether it's youth engagement, whether it's economic development, as Alderwoman Purchase, represents downtown, and that's one of the one of the city's main economic areas. I represent Ward 2, where economic activity needs to pick up, and Alderman Williams definitely represents areas along I-55. That's one of the strongest economic corridors in the city, in my opinion. So, definitely, a challenge of mine is always going to be how do we combat poverty on all levels, whether that's housing, whether these lead water pipes, whether it's our youth engagement and enrichment and empowerment. Business development is an ongoing process. And we try to attack each one of those things, particularly in Ward 2. We've tried to, I've tried to put together policies and different things to attack each one of those things simultaneously, so we can really try to get the whole ship rolling, and not just one end or not more people involved, and that's what it really takes. But I'll defer to my colleagues on the rest of their thoughts. But I definitely think that we all are unique in our own way, but we definitely all have some of the very, very same issues.
Yeah, Shawn hit it on the head when he said the common denominator is infrastructure. Infrastructure is so big because guess what? We're the inner core of the city. I always say Ward 5. Of course, I'm biased because I represent Ward 5, but I say we are downtown for us is the economic engine because you also have state employees, state facilities, you have housing, you have some of the oldest gyms. And when I say gyms, like your presidential museum and library, you got the old state capitol, the new capitol that's being worked on. And also don't forget about people. People live downtown and we're trying to increase the growth and density there. So that is like, I call it the octopus, and all the arms go out to all of these other wards. And it's the common denominator that brings everyone together. All of our festivals are down there, and just making sure that everyone feels welcome, not just one particular group of individuals coming out for something. So we try to really push for that. I'm always saying that at City Council, please come out and join, and just making sure that we meet everyone's needs too within the downtown. And when you expand over, Mike, going north, I'm over the medical district. So I got St. John's Hospital, I have Memorial Hospital, I have Springfield Clinic, and just had the Illinois State Nursing Program come here. So me, Alderman Gregory, Alderman Williams is working on something huge within our TIF district to help with those retaining people who are wanting to go into the medical field or going through school. We got Dr. Naveed doing a $4 million project. Instead of these students going to live out west, they can be right here in our backyards and be in walking distance to go to their jobs. That's one of our number one employment is through the medical facilities throughout the city of Springfield. So I think that's huge. And then the last thing I don't want to forget is our neighborhoods. Our neighborhoods is our backbones, our neighborhood association. They're the eyes and the ears for us to address problems and solutions. You know, you may always see me and Alderman Gregory out together and doing separate things in our wards, and we showcase it through our media outlet, but you don't get to see that everyday engagement with people. When people call our phone, Mike, when I see you downtown and we start talking, when I have to take calls and I have complaints or concerns and I need them addressed, you all don't get to see that. You don't get to see us turning in those ticket orders and getting those complaints addressed through our public works or our CWOP. So it's a lot. I would say about 80% of our job is just that every day. We're answering emails and talking to our constituents and finding a way to get solutions, because everybody wants instant. They want it now. They want it done tomorrow. And I know that I send in at least 25 plus emails a week talking about this grass over here hasn't been cut. You know, we laughed about it, but KFC on 9th Street, we took a picture and the grass was as tall as me and I'm 5'3". So when we run into issues like that and we have these new zone managers, it's been helping for us to talk to our zone manager and them be the liaison between getting things addressed. And I think that's the biggest challenge, is letting people know, hey, we turned this ticket order in. We just don't know where it's at in the queue. So working with the city to get feedback to say, hey, this has been addressed. And if it hasn't been addressed, it's next on the list, or it's 5 more ticket orders that's in front of it. So I think I would say that's the biggest challenge for me, but we all have some of the same issues that have to be addressed with us being right next door to each other.
Okay.
Well, I like to think, I like to tell the other aldermen, Gregory and Rockford, that I represent the best side of the east side, but with saying that, our biggest challenge in the Ward 3 is the people itself, I have a slogan, Mike, that I use with my campaign that says democracy requires participation. And I always tell my people, I'm not talking about just filling out the census and registering to vote. I'm talking about being a part of somebody's organization, whether it's church, whether it's a neighborhood association, whether it's any kind of civic group. There's tons of groups out here and things. There's a role for everybody to play in the neighborhood to make places and make society better. So that's common with their wards as well in the whole city. I think our voting records are horrible, not just in Springfield, in the United States. But when I just look at Springfield alone, I'm appalled. But we get what we do. So half of them don't come out and vote, so they have to live with whoever wins because they don't participate. So that's been a challenge for me, getting people to participate. My neighborhood associations, I have 12 of them. 8 of them are active. Out of the 8 that are active, I top about 40, 45 people who come out to the meetings. But these neighborhoods are 200-300 strong households. Not that I expect all, 300, 200 to come to a meeting, but goodness gracious, some of them never come. And it's those little things that they miss out on, that where they miss out on their voices being heard. But then they want to complain. That's a challenge to me. So I would say the challenge is to get people to participate a lot more than what they do. That is my number one challenge as far as being alderman.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Roy. Next question. USA Today listed Springfield as one of the 15 worst cities in the country for Black people. What's your feeling on that, and how do you feel the narrative can be changed?
Man, Mike, I got to tell you, just on Friday when I had left Alderman Gregory, there was I sit on the Equity and Inclusion Workforce Advisory Council with Dr. Wendy Elamina, and there's a whole list of others that's on it. Well, one of the doctors had presented the segregation in Springfield and talked about the tracks that divides us. And then talked about the employment, talked about majority of our population in the Black community are getting their GEDs all the way up to the age of 25. It starts with that you're bringing us around to why we formed the Springfield Aldermanic Black Caucus, because these are things that need to be addressed. You have 3 strong leaders that sit on city council to be able to address some of them, but these are going to be some uncomfortable conversations that's going to be had coming forward too, to be able to ask our colleagues to participate in making this change. If you look at city council, it's 10 of us. You need 6 votes for anything to pass. So sometimes it can be kind of challenging to get some of these efforts that we need to make that change. Everything Alderman Gregory just talked about with economic impact, all of those things play a major role in redlining. I learned about that through this segregation presentation that came forward of where people stay that can get qualified for a house or their median household income. Just really educating and helping our people to be able to move forward. Some people just don't know what they don't know. So I think that's where it starts within me and working with Alderman Gregory and Alderman Williams to try to break those barriers. And our community is in a crisis right now with everything that's taking place. And I got to be honest, I go paddleboarding, and I had talked to Shawn about this, and we've been out there the last 2 weeks where we've been on the boat. And so I know this is just fresh after the death of Sonia Massey, and someone put NIGGER painted across the train tracks where your boat goes under. So you have to slow down to go through that area, and it's spray painted going all the way across, and that's happened within the last 5 days. So let's, that's where we gotta say we need to draw the line, because that's racism and bigotry at its finest.
Well, Shawn, Roy, you guys want to take a stab at that one?
I mean, it doesn't surprise me. You know what I'm saying? We have there's been so many studies that come out. I remember when I was young running and stuff, the Heartland and segregated in the Heartland article came out with Reverend Johnson, and when he began to do some of his homes. So the stats and the information has been out there for so long, and as Alderman Purchase said, it has always been a touchy conversation, and anytime that we attack it, there is significant pushback from all areas, because it's often looked like, oh, you're calling me a racist. No, we're just, if Black folks don't speak up who are in offices of power or position or whatever you want to call it, then who else is? I can't expect someone else who is not of my culture to speak up for us. We have to do it. And often, we catch hell for it. In various manners that we can. Whether that's not something passing that should, or having to have a hard time with legislation here whenever we present stuff that's good for our communities. Or just receiving the dollars and things that are supposed to come down from the federal and state governments and getting it actually into the hands of the people. That's why we're ranked where we're ranked, because it is really difficult to do those things. So we constantly, me, Roy, we have 30-hour conversations at least once every other day, strategizing how we can, get people in place and to really help us drive home the initiative. Whether that's supporters who have to come speak up, whether that's people who have to help us, rally for different initiatives that we'll have coming forth and stuff. It can, that shouldn't be surprising, and we all three know it. It's the others that have to accept it. Not only on city council, but beyond. That has to say, hey, look, we have to really do what we're going to say for the Black communities across, not only in Springfield but across this country. This is why we're seeing some of the problems that we're seeing right now, because at times, for whatever reason, it is very, very difficult for the Black communities to really receive what they are often promised.
Well, for me, I would say it takes me back to my childhood as a boy living in the John A. Homes, which is where Madison Park Place is today. But John A. Homes, we were segregated back then. 11th, 12th, and 13th Street was all the white people in the projects. 14th and 15th was all the Black people in the projects. So thinking about my childhood and how segregated we was, and walking to Lanphier High School through all white neighborhoods, all the way to Lanphier, and then coming back. And back then, Westside wasn't what it is today. I do believe things are changing and are trying to change, but we have a lot more work to do. And as an alderman, where I think a lot of the work has to be done is through things like zoning and through things like variances and getting things improved, because that's where the unseen racism can be practiced. I've got people who have wanted to build and want to do different things over here, and then we have all these rules that apply to us because we're trying to do them over here. But then I can go show examples of the same thing happening out west and get told, oh, well, that was grandfathered in, or, oh, well, they always have a reason. I can't make the developer come to your side of town, Roy. I can't make them. We just went through it the other night, talking to, Sangamon Growth. They say 100 jobs. I'm excited. Not only 100 jobs, but 100 jobs, and you don't need a degree. I'm excited. Oh, I got tons of folks that can do factory work for Frito-Lay, that can do that kind of stuff. Springfield's getting some form of a factory. Good. Where do they put it? Right where the people don't want it. Where the people came in and told us, Mike, we don't want it out here. They put it in Chatham. They exited Chatham. So is that really Springfield? Are you really looking out for people that need that kind of work, or are you still playing the same in-county game that they play here? We're on that list, and we're segregated like that intentionally. It's not a mistake. That's intentionally. I just said way back when I was a child, all the way to today. Yes, we're making some steps to get better, but we have a long way to go. But we got to start with little bitty issues like that. With that kind of a factory, those kind of jobs, those things should have been 2, 3, 4, 5, up where those kind of people live who are going to work there. Now we got to deal with how we get people out there to go to those jobs, out on the highway, way out at the Chatham exit. This is not Chicago, where they're used to having buses and trains and all kinds of ways to get places. That difference in the 10 miles to Chatham is a big hurdle that people without cars are going to have a hard time getting through. We didn't think about that. All we thought about is putting it where we wanted it, regardless what the people who didn't want it thought and felt about. And that's why so many of our votes are lopsided, because we don't put the people first. We didn't listen to the people that in need of the jobs. We didn't listen to the people who didn't want it out where they were. We just did what we think is smart, or what our money, who writes us checks, are smart. I mean, they get mad at me for thinking like this and saying this out loud. I have no problem saying it out loud. This is a part of our challenges and why we make lists like what you see right now.
Mike, I want to follow up behind Roy. I just got two things. So, and I'm one of those who had a yes vote on this. So me and Roy was on the opposite ends, and it's okay. That's what makes us so unique about this group and being the Black Caucus now for the automatic area. Typically, you go with your home alderman when something comes up in their backyard. That's the first thing that we always address. They make the motion and we go with, because they know their area the best. The second thing is, I wish Ryan McCready, who was with the Sangamon Growth Alliance, would have came up before this zoning issue had happened, because he explained the process. He talked about, how they find these acquisitions, how they find the land, what do they go through? Do they contact the person? Is the person who owns the land willing to sell the land? You can't put something on somebody's land they don't give you permission. So it's a lot of pieces that go to that puzzle. But Alderman Williams had made a very valid point. Sometimes when we know that we have a space in our area, making sure we're in contact with the Growth Alliance as well as they're in contact with us. This is a back and forth thing. It's not just a one-way relationship. So contacting us to let us know, hey, we have a developer coming to town that's looking for this. And Alderman Williams said, how was the selection done? Like, I could have found 3 or 4 places in my ward. So I thought that was a learning curve for everyone to hear, so that you could just know what's going on. And we also asked the Growth Alliance. Obviously, they had a lot to provide to us on Tuesday because it was a ordinance coming forward to renew their contract. It would be nice to hear this stuff throughout the entire year. He gave a diverse report on everything, every project that's happening throughout the city of Springfield, but it was just a lot to unpack and remember and try to follow up and ask questions about. So if you can bring this to us a few times throughout the year, we can have more engagement and talk to you. And that's a part of our platform as 3, to be able to go and ask these questions with things that we want to see done in our areas, and just follow-ups too on what's actually being done as far as progress. The second thing I wanted to address with your question, just hearing from Roy and Shawn, me and Shawn, we talk almost every day. And when that letter came out from Southern View, you asked, how can you have change? You can't have change when you got people antagonizing us. You got people making it seem like we animals and nothing is being done. The words that he used in the letter saying riot and looting, I guess maybe he needs to be educated on what happened back in 1908, because it wasn't us burning our businesses and our houses and our people down. So maybe he needs to go back and look at that before you start attacking us with something that you think may be happening, and you in a whole nother jurisdiction. That's the type of stuff that really has people on edge or can get outraged. We're not trying to burn our own businesses down. These are places that people got a grocery shop, go to, patronize. So to put that out there, we got to start with that, breaking that down, because right now it's seeming to get intense. When I just told you what I just saw at the bridge too, and it happened, it's like timing is just the worst time for us to be seeing some of this.
Yeah. And I saw that letter as well, and I really didn't understand it. And first of all, you probably got a police force of maybe 10 people. And I don't know what's the worst thing that happens in Southern View. Maybe somebody get a bicycle stolen out of the garage or whatever. I'm not sure, but I know they don't have the issues that we have in Springfield. And on top of that, too, when you say our intel, I mean, what type of intel are you getting and who's giving you this intel? I saw the letter as well. And I really wasn't happy about it in terms of how it was put together. And I concur with what you said, Lakeisha, in terms of what the feeling is on that. And this is a person in leadership as well as saying that. So I'm glad that you addressed that and you said.
Yeah, we had got screenshots that night at City Council, and I just wanted to address and commend our our Springfield Police Department, yes, we do got issues. So let me be very clear on that and be transparent. We do got issues within our own police department, but we're working together to address that. But I wanted to make sure because, this stuff is making national news. You had some of the statewide leadership sending out press releases, but nobody is being specific. They're categorizing everyone as law enforcement. And we got several different law enforcement entities here just within Springfield. It's kind of crazy. It's a lot of law enforcement agencies within the Springfield boundaries and the county. They just all intertwine each other.
Mm-hmm. How difficult is it to get legislation passed that benefits your wards?
Well, I mean, it can be difficult. It definitely can be difficult. I'll say that it often is hard to paint the importance to people who may not understand. You know what I'm saying? And that has been probably for me, you know what I'm saying, being here the longest and probably try to pass the most things. That's where it gets the most difficult. I mean, our communities, especially my community, we need every bit of funding that is supposed to be directed to our communities. When we talk about economic development, I'm a big fan of. I want our those who are from the community to be the business owners and things like that. I really don't do a lot of the bringing in businesses or the big guys or something like that to ours. I would love to see our people build up our community because that is the type of community we are, of Ward 2 as far as that. And that's what our goal has been. Of course, you'll get some major businesses when you get a little closer to South Grand on Roy Street, side of South Grand. But in the cuffs in our communities, and I have some downtown as well from the Y Block on South to South Grand, and we're trying to build up that corridor as well. But the same thing goes. I think we have enough people who want to do good things and good work in the community. Roy brought up zoning challenges and things of that nature who want to do those things. And we have to work. I would like to see all of these different entities. I think we talked about the Growth Alliance and all of that. All of these different entities work just as hard for our interests in our community and what we want to do as we would do the sports complex, that we would do different things that we want downtown. Or in other places of our community, just like this Frito-Lay place or whatever it is out there. If I was there, I had to miss that meeting. I probably would have voted for it because I really don't care, right? I want those who want to come to our community. I'm not interested in any of those, anybody who doesn't want to develop in our community because we have plenty that do. I just met with a young man. Roy got all the popular property, but got some property over in Ward 3. And he definitely
out of it.
Do some things, But and that's what it's about. Is really finding ways to help them succeed because it can do a wealth of good things. This project on 11th and South Grand that we have, CAB 1908, it has come a significant way, and we got a significant way to go. But when it's done, right now it's got 6-7, non-for-profits or businesses in it. The next sector is to really have the incubator for those who are into the cooking industry and all of those things where they'll have a place to operate out of and grow their brand and with goals to pop out into their own big places and grow business, and turning that performing arts theater, which is something that our community has frequently talked about on any type of survey that we, been put out there a lot of times. So that, just spurring that economic development and clays and, we had Heroes pumping at one point in time. So we just want to push that development. That's, in our 20-year, whatever comprehensive plan is that South Grand and 11th Street is really going to go some commercial and then good housing beneath it, behind them and keep growing. But those are the things that we really gotta go, and we gotta bring and trust new people. Everything can't go through certain people. It's new people. It's more people that can. We just gotta help them with the things that they do, the knowledge, giving them the knowledge. Hey, this is available for y'all. This is open. These contracts is open. And this is, if you're not set up, this is how you get set up. And we put things in place to try to help you. So that's what I like to see more aggression, from the powers that be, including me. I'm one of them, to get things done.
Mike, I will say when it comes to that though, Alderman Williams said it best, the participation. Looking at my ward, Ward 5, when something is being brought forward, my community connects and say, what can we do? And if I haven't learned it from organized union, they know how to move in numbers when it's something that's important to them, something that they are passionate about. They come, they speak, and they represent, and they show up in numbers. Case in point, we just had the 3 a.m. liquor license, and my bars was, outraged because it affected my ward the most with having 3 a.m. liquor license. And the administration and the Springfield Police Department wanted to take it from 3 a.m. down to 1 a.m. And I wasn't aware of the process coming forward and had to work with my bars, and they showed up, and just them showing up changed the minds of people who were making those decisions. And so when Alderman Williams and Alderman Gregory has things that are coming forward in their wards, the same way we see people on Facebook sharing stuff about parties and hanging out, them the same people we need that energy coming to city council when you need to address something. We're only 3 people. We can't change everything if we don't have y'all coming to speak up about what's important to you. I think for me, that's the most frustrating part. And yes, I see a lot of positive comments when Shawn posted the Springfield Automatic Black Caucus. People said this is going to be so huge for our community with unity. It is, but we need you all too. We need y'all to participate. When Roy and Shawn got these projects that they need, and we know that we got people in the community that could do, you got to show up. You want to ask about money, you want to follow where the money is going, you can watch it from right comfortably in your home, in your living room, and tune in every Tuesday, or you can come and listen and just stay engaged and learn what's going on too. Rotate. Somebody come from the organization show up. Sometimes Shawn is up there fighting himself to talk about somebody else's stuff, but they're not even in the audience to come forward and address their own stuff.
Yes, and so I would agree that self-advocacy is the best way. I tell all my groups that, in fact, my successes have come from me saying, I'm not going to do it. You got to come and do it yourself. So when moving Pillsbury forward, they self-advocated for themselves. It was my want and my need, which brings me to my second point. If you base what you're doing on need and not want, you're more successful because it's a need. It's something they can't ignore. Popular place they couldn't ignore. They have been ignoring it. It had got worse and worse and worse and worse. But look at it today. That's because they finally came down there, presented 1, 2, 3 times, trying to get this money. We got it worked out. We got it done. Pillsbury is getting tore down finally, but it's been sitting there 20 years like that. Self-advocacy works. Participation. Again, democracy requires participation. Who could tell your story better than you? So you do have to come down before us and advocate. That's what the white folks was trying to do the other night when they came down saying, we don't want this we don't want the warehouse. We don't want the Frito-Lays. They were advocating for themselves. More neighborhoods on the east side need to do that about things. Instead of relying on their aldermen and complaining to their aldermen, they need to come down as a group, because collectively, one thing we as politicians understand is money and numbers, voters. So those numbers will move things and make people aware. Now, a lot of times you still lose, but at least you tried. At least you tried, and you're on record, and they're on record on how this plays out and how things go. but you got to at least try. So self-advocacy, I require that. People want to open a business in then you're coming down. You're going to be asking for that. The alderman's not going to be asking for it because there's too many other aldermen that may be hung up on and be against it just because Roy wants it. But if they can see past Roy and see where the need really is, or whoever it is requesting it, maybe they'll vote different. So I don't make it about me. I make it about them, but I require them to participate.
Yeah, and I'll say just real quickly so you can move on to the next question, Mike. But for my ward, which is majority Black, they are just so we have just had such a long time of being deprived. Even when the fight, it's not that our community won't. I mean, I think we seen when that homeless shelter on 11th Street was going to put up. We seen organization, and we seen how we can come to fire. So, a lot of it is just what it is, and the project, the person who's bringing the project out, well, we advertise that and things of that nature. But a lot of things that come about us are common sense things, are easy stuff, are not nothing, drastic. Like there hasn't been besides the houses that Nehemiah is doing, there hasn't been a $20 million project come for Ward 2. You know what I'm saying? To really rally the troops that they would think that we need to fight for that or something like that. These be simple things, $200,000 for youth employment, summer youth employment, you know what I'm saying? Just some of these simple things. $600,000 to help, move on to the next process in what we're doing, for entrepreneurs and incubation for our community. Of course, housing is always important and stuff. These would be simple things, that I think as we went on, obviously, we've got some good things done. People are starting to really come to city council and voice their opinions more and really say, hey, what needs to be done, and we'll keep working that. But I always try to speak up even when somebody's not there, because often, man, it is it's something to sit there in front of them 10 council members and speak up and and be truthful in it and stuff like that. So at times, a lot of times I'm like, hey, I'm gonna look into this for you, even though it's uncomfortable and stuff like that. At the same time, encourage them to come speak for yourself. We've seen a young man come up and speak for himself and have some success. We still had do some things that were right by the city, right? But he came out well, and part of it was because he came and spoke for himself as well, having advocacy of all of us. So,
I know, Shawn, I've shared this with you before, but there was some legislation that was passed that you and Doris Turner, former Alderwoman Doris Turner, were a part of. In my opinion, was probably some of the best legislation that's ever been passed as it relates to the Black community in Springfield. And that's where I think they took some of the dollars from the cannabis sales and set those aside for East Side businesses. And I think it really did a lot for the Black economy on the East Side of Springfield. Where's that program at now? I understand that there was some questions about some of the spending in terms of how the dollars went. But I think that's a very important program, one, as it relates to wealth in the Black community, because that's one of the ways that you build wealth in the Black community is through businesses and through home ownership. Yeah. And I think that's a very key piece of the puzzle and really helping to address, the wealth gap as it relates to Blacks and whites in this country and as well as in this city. Where is that program at? Is it going to come back? Or is it an annual program? Can you guys talk about that? What's going on with that?
Well, it's supposed to be an annual program that has 2 application periods, one in February, one in July. I just spoke to Director Yazel, 2 weeks ago, and I do know that they're supposed to be awarding the 7 that were scored. 7 out of the 16 that were scored from the February 2023 application period. There has not been a application period since that has been open. I would really love to see that opened and that start flowing again, because you're right. That is a very, very important economic tool for the Black community and the Ward 2 community as a whole. It's a historic legislation. We're one of the only cities that has done anything to say, hey, we're directly putting this money to our worst areas, and so it's a very special legislation to us, and it has did some dividends. And yes, we had some applicants that didn't complete what they were supposed to complete. But majority of the applicants did what they were supposed to do with the funding that they received. In fact, they did what they were supposed to do with less than some of the funding that they were supposed to receive, and didn't get all the funding that they were supposed to receive. So again, one of those things where it gets tough to get the money in the hands of the people. It's hard to ask people to say, oh, you want a $40,000 grant and you got so much in TIF that you can use also for your building, but you got to pay it out and then pay us back. I've always been an advocate for turning in those invoices so they can be paid by us, and we can move on if you don't have the funding, or maybe a small deposit on something to work with people to get things done. That first round was 22 businesses. I believe it was 18 of them were all successful within it, completed their project. So it's been a year and a half. The next round, no matter what, won't come out until February 2025. So that's 3 application periods, of anywhere from about $700,000 plus whatever in the housing. So probably about $1 million, that could be going to our community it along with the other funding, So that's another one of those battles to keep going, and it's a generational thing. Trust me, I'm sure. There's been talks to probably try to change it and things of that nature, but why would anyone want to change something that's helping a community like ours?
Well, I will jump in after Alderman Gregory and Mike. You'll be the first for me to have said it, so we know that I no longer work for the state and had went into lobbying, and I was lobbying for cannabis, but now I'm not lobbying for cannabis going into this next session. And there had been some conversations about moving and expanding the boundary lines, and me and Alderman Gregory has spoke about it, and some of those boundaries do tap into a little bit of Ward 5 and a little bit of Ward 6, and we were thinking about bringing that forward with the understanding from the census map that the state provided, not something that we did here locally, but I believe that there was a little bit of challenge from one of our colleagues who wanted it to even go all the way out west. And so I think that's where the challenge comes in for us 3 sitting right here. And maybe now I have to speak with Corporation Counsel, but maybe now that I'm no longer lobbying, how contracts work. They're not for the next 10 years. They're only for a year or so. As we continue to move forward, and Alderman Gregory and Alderman Williams feel comfortable because it's predominantly over in the Black community, but they could share a little bit with Ward 5 and Ward 6.
Well,
I'll let Roy talk.
I don't feel comfortable. I'm not happy, and I think it's intentional. This mayor has been in a year and a half and hasn't given out any marijuana money. What is there to study? We're going to have bumps, like the alderman said, on both sides, by the way. Staff side on it because it was a new program. But that don't mean you just stop it. It was unfair. It's unfair to those 7 that still ain't been awarded. The key word was them are February 23 candidates that got approved. This is in 24 in July now. And now we're not talking about something until next February, which will be 2 years now. Shawn can say how much money all he wants. All they're going to do is steal it or do something else with it, or do just what Alderman Purchase said. Oh, we're going to expand it. I tell you what, instead of y'all getting it, if you share with us, then maybe we'll start giving it out again. I feel like that's what they've done. They've said, well, we're going to halt the program until we work this thing our way to get us some of this. Because as y'all say, it was historic. The intent of the legislation. If you read the pros and cons from committee call all the way to the governor signing it, you will see what the intent was. It wasn't supposed to be for no police. No percentage for the police. And Doris and Shawn let that happen. Yeah, they get mad at me for saying it, but it happened. Talking about, well, we couldn't get it passed when it happened. Well, why couldn't you get it passed? You saw what the intent was. They were supposed to be letting these brothers out. That the crime bill, affected negatively. They were supposed to be helping rebuild lives. The 3 R's, the whole bit in that community. That legislation was so broad and so sweeping. We took it, applied our home rules, did it one time, and now it's kidnapped. I might do it again. I might not do it. This is Val Yazel. I hope she watches this. We might do it again. We might not. There's no reason why them 7 that's been waiting for over a year shouldn't have their money now. And we're on to our next. We got all these cycles going. We're collecting these taxes, and they just sitting. I'm not happy. I am not.
But Mike, I'm gonna follow up behind Roy because
I'm not finished though. Okay. I'm not finished though. You guys gotta let me finish like I let you.
Your thing, dog.
So what I'm saying is we need to hold the city accountable. Everybody waiting should have been at council saying, hey, I applied back in 23. What's going on? What's happening? Right. That's just the only way you move them and make them understand, hey, but as long as we sit here and keep letting them, well, we got to see what's already on the books. Oh, we got to see how it worked. We did an audit. Okay, an audit is to make it better. You got your audit, make it better. Make your corrections and let's keep it moving. But it's been at a halt. This mayor can't say anything, but she's been there a year and a half now, over a year and a half. And there's been no marijuana money, no more black businesses other than the original ones have gotten anything. And that's not fair. That is not right. Now they're saying, oh, well, we're probably going to do it, but we're going to be going into these other wars. Now it ain't even fitting the purpose. I wouldn't know when they gave it to the cops, or I would have been the first one screaming, that ain't the purpose either. They didn't pass that legislation with that intent to say, oh, we're going to help them with their pension. No. So we're just going to always have to respectfully disagree on that piece.
Well,
and on how the mayors handle it. They may be fine with it. I am not.
No.
Shawn, but that's why me and Shawn talked, and I said it, us 3 being together and being united, as you can hear, Roy, I'm not going to say is angry. He's passionate about this particular subject, and I respect his passion, and we all have our differences, and I was being very specific so we understand that I'm coming when it's appropriate. It has had some barriers. It has had some hurdles. It has to have an investigation. You have to let the process work itself out. But I'm making sure that Alderman Gregory, which predominantly is his area too, that we talk and be on the same page when we come forward. Because if you can break us apart and pick us off, then that's where we have the disruption, and sometimes we won't get nothing done.
So, but Mike, in fairness to them, what we have to understand as a caucus, it's fine. We can be on different sides. So you got to remember, I'm the intern from the state legislative Black Caucus, and I watched the group, and they wasn't always together, and they had many fights. Let me tell you, all it took was the governor to say, "I'm gonna give you a new school." Whoop, there's one vote, and he would dilute that thing down to where they didn't have the impact. But you're right. We're strong. The purchase is right. If we can stick together, when that caucus stuck together, that's why they're as big as they are today with super majorities. But it comes from sticking together and not letting nobody pick you off. But when they start saying, well, I'm going to take this and move it over, they're picking it. They're diluting it.
Well, you know, when we talk about this cannabis thing, and one thing that I'm sure my other council members know, that I'm gonna fight any changes, because the cusp of it, hell, we ain't even got nothing out to grow our community yet.
That's what I'm saying.
Like we
already expanded.
This is before, like, more so Keisha on this, but we ain't never been ones to not work with the others. You know what I'm saying? So when we talk about this state map, the state had a map. where different areas, even areas make you scratch your head, had a little green spot or something like that. But if you go click on those areas, it has two things. It says high priority and not high priority. Because sometimes people try to talk around like you done, but it has two areas, high priority and not high priority. And many of those areas, when you click on them, are not high priority, but everything in Ward 2 is a high priority. And that's why the legislation is tailored to the areas most affected by crime. Crime happens, throughout our cities in every country, in every city in the country. But the most affected area that needs it the most is where, we try to draw the boundaries to. Both me and Ward 3 have some areas that, got $100,000 houses, so we wanted to draw the box around the most affected areas. And yes, there is areas that are on anchor wards of Ward 2, which we 5 and 6, and 3, of course, on my other side, that poverty spills over to, that once we're able to get out and do some things, it's unfair to the people to try to change anything, right now to anything, as far as cannabis grants, because it hasn't played out dividends in the area it was meant to go to in the first place. So that's what makes it hard, to do anything in this manner. And for it to be a historic thing, it has to make sense. It has to make, dividends for the community that we want to.
Okay. I really enjoyed the discussion on that. I think there was some good dialogue. And I think one of the things that you all said, and I heard what you said in terms of unity and being able to stay together, because you might not always agree on everything, but I think the key is that if you can stick together and get what is needed for your community. And I think that's very important. I understand, I hear what you're saying, Roy, and it makes sense to me at least. But again, I'm not an alderman. I don't have any votes or whatever, but that's just my opinion. But moving on, I have a few more questions. I've really enjoyed the show, and I think you guys are doing an excellent job. But I want to talk a little bit. I want to pivot a little bit to downtown Springfield. Lakeisha, I know that's a big area that you represent. And Shawn, I believe you have a little portion of downtown as well. Is that where the Y block is? Is that in your ward or Lakeisha's ward?
That's the Y block's in our ward.
Okay. Talking about downtown, do you feel like some of the preservation groups stymie downtown development in terms of what they stand for, in terms of not wanting to tear down some of these buildings that should be torn down and redeveloped? And case in point, there's probably about 500,000 square feet of empty office space in downtown Springfield. This is, I know for a fact, about 500,000 square feet of empty office space in downtown Springfield that the state of Illinois probably will not be going back in the lease. It's not going to work for leases anymore, and it probably needs to be turned into some sort of housing. Because these buildings are so old, the amount of money that would take to rehab these things, you can't make the numbers work in order to do some sort of residential project, even with tax credits. Outside of the Myers building, I believe when Mayor Langfelder was in office, they had a buyer for that building that wanted to do a tax credit project. But for what I understand, and you correct me if I'm wrong, I believe Mayor Langfelder shot that project down because, for what I heard, again, if I'm wrong, correct me, that they did not want to see low-income housing, but they wanted market rate housing. So can you guys speak to that? Because downtown Springfield is, for the most part, its own life support. A lot of businesses come and go. They don't have the foot traffic in order to be able to sustain itself. And probably what's really needed is more residential development downtown, where people live downtown, they shop downtown, they eat downtown, they do everything downtown, because the state now is moving away from a lot of leasing office space, if you will, in terms of being able to possibly consolidate some things, looking at hybrid work schedules, because when COVID came, a lot of people started working from home, and a lot of people are still working from home. So this is probably a big issue. And I can name you 5 or 6 buildings downtown right now that are vacant. The Ridgely building, the Bakari building, most of the The Myers building is empty. You got the PNC building. You got the Illinois building. You know, when you put all these buildings together and some of the other ones, you're talking about 400,000 to 500,000 square foot of space, vacant space, as well as where the cannabis space is at right now. You know, a lot of that space is empty. So can you guys talk to that? Do you think the preservation groups have too much power or try to stop a lot of things? Because in my opinion, a lot of those buildings need to come down and you have new development. So you guys speak to that, any one of you?
Yeah, so let's start with I definitely made a decision that was against most of the individuals you're naming about it's a building. For those who are not familiar with the names of the buildings, it was right across the street from Amble and Forge. And that building was torn down, and a lot of people were upset with me. A lot of groups were upset with me, but nobody knew that building had sat vacant for over a decade. And so when you start that set a light bulb off in my head, and my antennas went up to say, how many more buildings do we have that are at this point where your nose can be bleeding when you walk in because the mold is so bad? Or you got holes coming from the roof that comes all the way down to the first floor, but nobody has the funds to fix them when these decisions are being made to, oh, we don't want to tear it down. So I've been trying my best to be included on information. And Mike, you just hit it on the head with residential housing that's needed. I've constantly asked for updates on the corner of 4th and Madison, so they're calling it the Loss. I know that it was told to me that the developer is not ready to, inform me of what's going on. When he is ready, I'll be informed about it. So sometimes I have to sit and wait with you all to figure out what's happening too, just right here in my own backyard. And that could be a little tough for me because sometimes I'm not able to answer actual questions and have to be transparent about it. So I'm making sure I try to meet with DSI. DSI is Downtown Springfield, Inc. We have a lot struggling. As you know, it was a huge fire that took place on Adams Street, and our farmers market had to be moved. And it has been a big disruption. To this past Wednesday was the first time that it was the worst. It was the worst for attendance in over several years, and it's starting to decline a little bit. And some of the concerns are being brought forward to me, but sometimes this is like Mother Nature that happened. One thing I want to say about the state, though, is it's unfortunate that the state agencies were in some of these buildings for so long and no renovations were done. So you and I are both into real estate, have been landlords, developed areas, and we know what it takes when you're in a commercial space, depending on how your lease is. This is the education part for the community. When you're in a lease and your lease is specified that it's on whoever is the leasee to have a white box, and then they do whatever they want to do, moving their offices in, putting new carpet in, changing lighting out. When you go into some of these buildings, you're surprised with how long it sat like this and the conditions that people sat in. Then to see a new facility be built out by the mall with a little bitty space in between to separate it from the mall. And I just didn't understand that. I'm not in the administration to know what type of conversations was had to say, hey, should we come back downtown? What's available? How can you all work with us to beautify some of these buildings? Is there any incentives? But this is the government, the state that has the most that can do some of the transformation. That particular project you talked about in the Myers building, I was involved in all of those conversations. And yes, when it came out about low income housing, there's a fine line with me talking about it because that affects people who look like me. And when you have people saying, well, I'm not going to have my business there because you'll have low income people, and then you're going to have people that we don't want to come into our downtown. I tell people all the time, I have people who have vouchers and they're with the Springfield Housing Authority. Sometimes it's really good to have them because there's accountability on the landlord side and accountability on the tenant side. We're trying to work on programs to bring in sprinkler systems. There's a lot of the buildings where the first floors are occupied, but the second floors aren't, because you're paying 80 to 100 grand just to put a sprinkler system in. If you don't put a sprinkler system in, you have to talk to our public works department about what can be the next option for you to do it without. You have to have a window. You have to do certain barriers for the floors. You have to have fireproofing spraying. There's a lot. And the only reason I can talk to detail about this is because I purchased a building downtown. So I know what I'm going through just to take a commercial space on the second floor and turn it into a residential space. And then you have to have a lot of patience. Something that we're working on with the city is and you know, I've gotten a lot of backlash to the point where sometimes it feels like I'm afraid to really speak out and be transparent about our inspectors. We have individuals who bring businesses down there and have encountered not so great interaction with our inspectors, and then they go and say they're letting people know they don't want to do business with the city no more. Anybody who wants to come in doesn't want to do business. So I took it upon myself to create a welcome packet. First, thank you for bringing your business and making this a permanent home and choosing downtown and not going out west. Moxo has made it very clear that they do not want to leave downtown to go out west due to the fire. And this man has been closed for how many weeks now since that fire? And still making it his business to stay here when there's been plenty of realtors reaching out to him to go out west and have plenty of spaces for him to go into. It is definitely a struggle. I spoke with both of my colleagues. I spoke with Shawn and Roy to say, I'm listening to my businesses and they're struggling right now. They're struggling to keep their doors open. Their sales are down. Stuff like your St. Patrick's Day parade, music on the Y Block, Halloween, Christmas, the farmers market, those are staples that give them access to capital and day-to-day operations for them to be able to keep their doors open in the wintertime when it's slow traffic. But if we keep building everything out west, we're pushing everything to the outskirt of the city. We're not bringing anything to the inner core. And the last thing I will say is, in the previous administration, when I first got appointed, I did a meeting with Nate Bottom, who was our public works director, and the mayor, which was Mayor Langfelder at the time. And it was just for businesses. It was an intimate meeting to talk about, I said, what's your Christmas tree list? What is the concerns that need to be addressed? Because I'm coming in the middle of a term and I don't know what went on before me. And I want to figure out where can I step in to be of help and a solution. Well, I know this mayor started off with the derecho. So that took a lot of her time. And I'm just waiting to see when can we do something where we actually sit down and discuss with the businesses. The economic development director sits on the board for Downtown Springfield Inc. And I know that they're working together. The previous executive director, she left from DSI and went to the Office of Economic Development and Opportunity. So just hoping that that can transition over and overlap with those relationships to keep building upon incentive programs. But we're at a point where we're at a breaking point where it will be, as the legislators call it, a ghost town. The sidewalks pick up after 5:30. And Mike, I try not to go outside of my ward to eat, get gas, go shopping. I try to stay in my ward. And I also tell our businesses too, we got to make sure that we're presenting stuff that's in our businesses that can be for everyone to patronize, not just one group. And sometimes you have to find what needs to be tweaked or changed for you to hit that target. Same thing we do with our houses. What's smaller, what's bigger? How can we make this bathroom a little bit bigger? You might have to cut into another room. It's the same mindset. So we're in a position now where we are like now asking to have more conversations and how can we build it up, and not pointing any fingers. But some of my colleagues say downtown is already getting a lot of attention. It's not enough attention.
So my portion, I mean, you talked about the Y Block. That's in Ward 2. So you know that's been some of the focus, right? How do we energize that? How do we make sure that we continue to bring 17 to 2,000 people down to the center of the heart of downtown to support the businesses downtown? My portion of downtown, you know, like I say, goes from 3rd and from 9th and Capitol to 3rd and Capitol, and it goes south all the way to Cedar. So, all the way up until South Grand. I won't say that we have a lot of vacant buildings. We have one that I think is being currently renovated across from the Lincoln Homes, but we almost have pretty much all the historic sites from Lincoln Home, Rachel Lindsay's home, Elijah House, the things across the tracks, Lincoln Color Home, Ambidexter House, Engine House number 5. So a lot of historic, Governor's Mansion itself being in Ward 2. So we try to really work with the governor's office. It does seem like there would be some plans that some funding to come down to help get that block developed, and we hope that it spills over into Ward 5 and going north into where our real business sector is. And that's always been one of the things. That's why Levis here. That's why we supported it, and try to push it as well, because it has really shown us what is needed downtown. There's been a lot of ideas flipped around for a long time, but the people showed us.
Yeah. Moving along, got a couple other questions. I know we've been going for a little while here, and I don't want to take up too much of you guys' time, but I'm really enjoying this conversation because I think it's very meaningful. Same time, too, I think it's good to have dialogue.
Absolutely.
Home ownership is an important element for the creation for wealth in the Black community, for Black people. Do you all have any ideas that can help create home ownership opportunities for Black people here in Springfield, particularly in the wards that you're in? Any ideas for home ownership? I know Reverend Johnson is doing a lot of housing, and a lot of this for lease, but in terms of being able to create wealth, I think it's very important that Black people own their homes. When we did the Eastview Estate subdivision over 20 years ago, a lot of those homes are paid for now. And I know one just sold for over about $200,000 out there, and they're paid for. So basically, it's helped create a nest egg and create some wealth for some Black families. You guys have any ideas or any thoughts on terms of how to create some wealth and build some houses or have housing that Black people can buy? And when I always say Black people, it's not that I'm ditching anybody else, but I'm looking out for the interests of us because, we're always at the bottom of everything. So I think it's important when you start talking about the wealth gaps that relates to Black and white. So any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I have a couple of thoughts. One of them is the local banking. I think that needs to be really looked at. Speaking of Eastview, that's Ward 3. I go to their neighborhood association meetings. I work with them with their challenges. They actually own lots that they pay taxes on, but they can't. They try to sell the lots. They get buyers. They do this. The banks never cooperate. I got a young man. He had $100,000 of his own money, but he still needed a gap. So he still needed the bank for something to build a house over there. No. Had another guy got approved but didn't get what he actually needed to build the quality of a home that he wanted to build over there. No. And then when I first became alderman and met those folks over there, Ralph Harris and a few of he was the president back then, and a few of the others, their challenge was we can't even sell our own lots. And these are quality people that live over there that know what they're doing. And it was because of banking. It was the redlining is still happening. It may not be the exact old-fashioned way, but it's some form of redlining that's still happening. So the first thing with home ownership is to make it possible again. My dream is what Dominic and Shawn and them got going with 1908. We need to have a place where people can go and be taught how to buy a home, how to get it financed from step one from A through Z. Get it all done. And I believe it can happen, and this resources is there, just like they have the programs for starting a business with the small business and in that business, in that incubator and all these other classes and all these other things. We have to help our citizens learn how to do things when it comes to buying a home, because everybody in a home probably shouldn't be in a home because they're not taking care of them properly. So I just think so much works there. And I'll just end it by saying the biggest challenge we have as Black people in Springfield is we don't have a pro bono type lawyer group where people can go from everything from landlord tenant issues, banking issues, real estate issues, all those. We lack the funds to hire lawyers, to pay the fees, to file something, to get in court. So we never move in those directions. So I think step one is to get that group of lawyers who can give some hours to the community and build from there and get these people in classes so that they're doing things the right way, so they know how to deal with these banks to get these things. Everybody's not as ignorant as they want to pretend. A lot of it is just stunting growth, stunting progress over here. And then they blame it on the contractors and the developers. Oh, they don't want to come over there. They don't want to do this. All these incentives we have, Mike, they don't have it out there. So why wouldn't you want to come? We give all the big highway somebody mentioned earlier, 55, St. Louis, Chicago. There is never going to Jacksonville is never going to compete against going to St. Louis and Chicago. 55 is it. Yeah, we have 72, and they're going to do everything in the world to try to make it this big premier, but it leads to nowhere. They're going to have to use 55, and we need to go ahead and build this side of town up. And it does start with good neighborhoods and good homes. I think we have to change our behavior. Some of the things we do as a people over here, whether it's with the business people or with home ownership and how we live, we have to make changes ourselves too. So it starts with us getting trained up and be willing to go through the processes of learning how to become homeowners. I always tell Pastor Johnson, okay, it's one thing to get them in a home, but somebody needs to be teaching them how to change the filters, how to do the landscaping, how to keep. Some people have never had any of that in life. The ones that have houses now, I got them in my ward, grandma died. That's how they got the house. But grandma never told them about the roof, the siding, the fencing, all that kind of stuff. So we need a lot of help in that area. And a lot of it's on the educational piece.
You touched on a good point, and Roy, I did a little brief show last night as it relates to Black homes being undervalued. And there's been cases throughout the country where Black people have had homes that they've tried to sell, and how when the appraisals come back, the appraisals are, thousands of dollars less than what the actual value is. And this is what affects a lot of homes in the Black community, specifically in Springfield. Yeah. So when you start talking about building a house, and right now the cost of building the house is very expensive. You're probably looking at about $200 a square foot. So if you wanted to build a 1,500 square foot house on the east side of Springfield, at $200 a square foot, excluding land, you're looking at $300,000.
Well, I would just say, Mike, there's a guy, I can't think of the author's name. I think it's Andrew Perry or somebody Perry. He's got a book out called Know Your Price. And he talks about the devaluing of our homes as Black communities and how they devalue. You get that same home somewhere else and how much more it's worth. So he takes you through that, but he says we should know our price so that they don't devalue what we own. Mm-hmm. So I hear you, brother. I hear you.
Yeah.
I agree. Though home ownership is probably one of the most important things that we must do, and we done some things, to try to help that. We'll continue to work on some things as a caucus as we bring this group together, but as well, the education piece I agree with wholeheartedly. But also bringing different scenarios and game plans to our table, some creative ways to get people into that home ownership. A lot of people can buy homes or afford to pay the rent that they're paying, but how do we shift them over to having home ownership to it? For this city, there's only 9,000, probably a little bit more now because this has been a few years ago, 9,000 Black homeowners in the entire city. 9,000 compared to and my numbers may be off, but it's 20,000 plus. 9,000, one of the worst in the country. So back to those earlier stats that you talked about, being ranked 15th worst place in the country for Black people. Well, we struggle. We're among the worst in the country in those two areas: home ownership and wealth gap. That's why our ranking is so high. So we have to attack those areas, and we are trying to attack those areas. But even with different developments, we have to look at them and say, well, while they are good, how do we make them better? how does that individual in that home, that Black individual in that home, get to the road of home ownership quicker? Because there absolutely is there programs in place for these new houses that we have coming and things of that nature. But they got you got to live there sometime. So we as a government got to look at it, and politicians look at, is that too long? Can we shorten that up? Is there ways that this individual can gain that home ownership quicker? For instance, I'm talking, I moved in there, Mike, and I got a 550 credit score. And really it's credit that has been holding me back. You know what I'm saying? On I'm just giving out an example. On many people, it'd be the credit. They may have the job at the state or the county or the city or whatever, but their credit is lacking. So once they get in this home and they pay over time and they brought that credit up to where they could buy the home anyway, maybe they can shortcut that the rest of those years and buy it, get the loan and do it. But again, the cost of what you was just describing, the cost to build these homes and things sometimes are exceeding, those loan amounts and etc. So it's a big thing. It has to be a priority, and it's something that all hands have to be on deck. And like Roy brought up, Cap 1908s and the Urban League, and all we have to get the fire on all cylinders, and we have been. But home ownership is one of those priorities that we look to attack. In every vessel, every fund that I try to get, in every program, man, we trying to address home ownership and how we can get it.
Well, in the city, as far as the city's concerned, you have to remember the city programs don't work for us, Mike, when it comes to houses and homes, because they use the term owner occupied. So we have the programs that they brag about that you can get and get your roof fixed and get this fixed. If I'm 70% rental, I'm not owner occupied. So those houses, those premises don't even qualify to get the free money to get the siding, the roof, or nothing. We have to fix this problem or else the programs are just on paper. Yeah. That's all. But it says it's for the underprivileged, the underserved, and that kind of a thing. But marginalized communities can get help when we're renters.
Yeah.
Mike, I would like to say one
thing,
ahead,
Lakeisha.
And it'll be very quick because that's my passion with me owning real estate. And one thing I could say is I take pride in telling people and being open with them. Yes, I'm making money, but what you're paying for a 3-bedroom, we can just use the housing vouchers. It's about $1,500 that you would get for a 3-bedroom, and it's a little almost close to $1,800 for a 4-bedroom. If you go even get a mortgage right now with the interest rates being 8.5%, you're still not paying $1,500 for your mortgage, and that's what taxes and insurance included in that mortgage statement. But one of the priorities, as Alderman Gregory said, we have something that is within us as this new Black caucus to be able to bring all of these groups together to educate our community instead of everybody having these silos and everybody doing their own separate thing. We would be the group that helped to educate. I was here at the age of 21 making $47,000 and a credit score of 613 and bought my first house and was able to get a loan and get rehabbing money with a 613 and making that amount of money. Now, my DTI, which is debt to income ratio, was under 20%. So it was easy for them to give me the money when I had been at the Illinois Department of Transportation now for 1.5 to 2 years. So it's a lot of education that just has to be provided. If you can pay your rent and you can pay over $1,000 for 2 years in a row and still be on a good paying job that's making over $55,000, you able to qualify. And we just have to be the leaders that help. I package my stuff up for the banks that I have my houses with. So if I have a tenant who's taking over, I'm making sure that we got they packet together and taking it into the bank before they even get there. And I think it's those partnerships and leadership roles that we can play as a role of the Springfield Automatic Black Caucus and bringing people together and requiring those banks to come out to be able to speak about it and having groups as a whole do it instead of these individual groups. And I just wanted to touch on that to say that that's a priority and try to bring in every question that you ask, and how will we address it as the three leaders of this caucus.
One of the things I would say, maybe recommend that maybe you all would consider, and I don't know exactly, in terms of the pots of money that they have in the city, is to be able to have some sort of subsidy that can go towards the actual purchase price of the house. And I'm not talking about a small subsidy. I'm talking maybe somewhere in the neighborhood of about $50,000. And they do this in St. Louis and other bigger cities because a couple case in points in that. One, and more often than not, when you go to the bank, and you're buying a house, if it's not FHA, they're going to want you to have, maybe 10 to 20% down for down payment. So in the event that you're buying a $200,000 house in the city, we're able to say we're going to put in $50,000. Now, granted, the money needs to go to the buyer as opposed to the builder, because if it goes to the builder and there's government funds, then that, sets off Davis Bacon. So now you're trying to build a house where you're paying $300 a square foot. So now you really can't make the numbers work. When we did Eastview Estates over 20 years ago, a couple of things happened. The interest rates were 9% at the time. But we were able to strike a deal with the Illinois Housing Development Authority to whereby individuals that bought houses over there that qualified were able to get 5% interest. So for every $100,000 that you borrow, it costs you $537 a month, excluding, your taxes and insurance. And so what we did, we looked for individuals that were paying, $1,100, $1,200 a month for rent, and we found those individuals and were able to get them financed. So even though we had individuals that had bad credit, another thing that we did, we started our own mortgage company. So now we were able to get these individuals who couldn't get conventional financing through the bank. They would run them through our mortgage company and get these individuals financed. Granted, they might have paid a higher interest rate, but they were still paying less to own a home that they were paying for rent. And our goal was that we don't want to keep you in a 11% interest rate, paid on this house for a year, get your credit intact, and then turn around and refinance it and get a better rate. So in saying that, it needs to be two things. Again, this is just my opinion I'm giving to you all, to be able to, one, identify funds, if there are funds out there like that, to be able to make a substantial dent in what it is, because you can give $3,000, $4,000 and the interest rates are still 9%. It really doesn't move the needle. But if in fact you put down $50,000, even though the rates may be a little bit higher, you can make some numbers work. So just some food for thought on that, to be able to think about that, because I think that's so important, in my opinion, as it relates to wealth in the Black community. I just have a couple more questions. I know we've been going here for about an hour and a half, and I think we've had some really good dialogue. But I wanted to touch base a little bit as it relates to the trades here in Springfield. I'm a big proponent now of the trades in terms of Black people being involved in the trades, because for a couple of reasons. One, everybody's not going to go to college, and the trades pay an awful lot of money. But in terms of having a skill that you can use to start your own business with, do you feel that Black people here in Springfield are fairly represented in the trades? When I start looking at the sheet metal workers union, the carpenters union, the plumbers union, the electricians union, these are all good paying jobs. People can make over $100,000 a year without any formal education. What you all feel on that in terms of how the trades are here in Springfield, and are they fair to Black people?
I'll start first. So I work with the trades continuously. I went to our president for the plumbers and steam fitters, Aaron Guernsey. I got all the Black Ministerial Alliance pastors to come to one room, have a lunch, because it was said in the community that some of the unions don't reflect our community. And it is true. Our number one union that has the most Black people that reflect our community is the Laborers Local 477. Brad Shivey is a big proponent of having diversity within his union, and opens the doors for people. But with the plumbers, there's an extensive process. You got to take a test. We have a hard time passing a test. Then we got to go through an apprentice program that pays you, but it doesn't pay you enough to not have another job. But yet you got to be required to put in all these hours. The carpenters are increasing a little bit more, but I make sure that I am in contact with them consistently every quarter, asking what can I do to help educate the community, bring us all together for you all to talk about it. And then lastly, I worked at the Illinois Department of Transportation in the Office of Small Business Enterprises. The HCCTP program is housed under our department, which is out at Lincoln Land. And you go through a program where it pays you, and then we create a pipeline for you to be able to go into one of those unions that you prefer, and we bring them to the table to have that access available to them. So I do think that the opportunity is there. No, I do not feel that every union represents us, and it's kind of, we're kind of in a weird position that we probably can't even talk about it on here, but we had a gentleman reach out to us that is with one particular union. And it's almost like he had been demoted, and he has been with that union for a long time. So we also face those issues inside the union to see how to change that cultural mindset too, and figure out ways that we as the three leaders could work from. But I know my other two colleagues may have different opinions. That's why I wanted to start first, because I'm supported by those unions. I go and spend time with them. I understand the process, and I try to figure out how can I use my platform and my voice to help open those doors and create more opportunities for them to come in.
Roy, you want to go? Or you want me to go? Well, I'll just start off by saying I think that's the big myth. I know for me, I'm a union member, so per se, I'm a Teamster, part of their Black Caucus, proudly.
916
with 916, trying to make sure that we're doing all we can for to recruit Black people into our particular union, and be an olive branch to other unions that they may well go. But I think a lot of times when we speak on it, and I'm not gonna speak for my colleague, but when we speak on this, it's like, oh, you're anti-union or anti this or anti that. No, we just want to see more people like us, and even for the brothers and sisters that's in those unions. It's never, we in particular, especially the laborers, like Keisha said, they hold it down and do a great job. And of course, there's opportunities to grow in the other unions, and I think they do know that. For me, I'm always hand extended. I mean, at one point in time, I reached out and trying to work with our operating engineers to partnership on all these demos that we got. That's great training opportunities for them, as well, different entities, and just trying to recruit and tell people, hey, I get, calls all the time from young brothers who want to work and stuff. But that's the key. They got to make sure they want to work and want to do it. Because some of them, it ain't cakewalk. You know what I'm saying? I mean, none of them is cakewalk, but sometimes you think you want to do something and you don't want to do it until you out there in the 100-degree weather or something like that. So a lot of times that does filter into this thing as well. But I will say there's been some progress made. I wouldn't be, since I've been in office anyway. We got a minority trades network. Ham been doing a good job with that. All of that he can do. Of course, there's others that we want to bring, use their expertise to bring more along, in different trades and different disciplines. And I think that's important, like I always say, there's others. Yes, there's the ones that we know, but there are others that have the skill and capability to help our community grow. And we have to use all of our tools, all of our people to grow. We can't just do it with a few people. And government has to understand that there's more talented individuals out there. There's more Lakeisha Purchases, Shawn Gregory's, Roy Williams Jr.'s out there that want to be engaged and stuff. And a lot of times it's allowing that. And as bad as that sounds, but allowing that, because it's three of us. We're a Black Caucus and stuff like that. And even if we all three vote on something, we still can lose, 7-3. But of course, our point is to bring legislation forth that's going to help not only Black people grow, but good for our city forward in a concentrated effort, and attack our issues head on with what we think. And a lot of it's funny. Yes, Mr. Pittman, I can't even call you Mike like Roy. Absolutely, is there money that we can allocate to something like that? But the will has to be there. All three of us, like I say, we can vote on come up with I can draw up a plan tomorrow and be like, yeah, we want to do this, this, or this. But we gotta have our support for our colleagues to get those 6 votes, and I believe we'll always get close. And I'll leave it at that.
Roy, you want to chime in, Roy? You do?
He said no, but you on mute if you do want to.
I hear you, Roy.
You on mute?
I am on mute because I'm doing 1,000 things.
That's
Listen, it's a sore topic with me. Okay, we got the laborers, and I will give them their credit. But the laborers is the bottom of the chain. This is where I get myself in trouble. They don't make the money that the other occupations make. The long money, the good money, the history is there, and they got everybody scared. Everybody. Black, white, it don't matter if you're a politician, you're scared. Because you won't call them out. I think their problem with me is I know the truth about the history. I know we are the original. Black people are the original tradesmen. It was us. We built the country. We did a whole lot of things that they don't want us to know. When I went to school, we had shop. We can leave with certification in certain little things, with carpentry and plumbing and different things from shop class. That's me. That's how far back I go. Unions took it. We made our mistake in America when we let them take it, because they took it and then started deciding who's going to get in and who ain't. When the public schools had it, everybody had an equal opportunity and could get in it. The testing was built into the curriculum of the shop class, so you passed the test and you graduated from high school as a certified whatever to give you your beginning steps of the apprenticeship to become a full-fledged member. But just because I ask questions, like how many women you got, how many black people you got, how come it don't reflect the town that you're working in? And they play these games. They spend money against you. They run against you. They get punitive, and they shouldn't be. They should want to work with you. But instead, it's like, dare you. The history, I know about it. I talked to Dawes, a Reverend Dawes, who was been in union all his life. He was called those things. He went through it. Silas too went through it. But that don't mean the guys today have to go through that and be called that. Maybe they had God in them and on their side, and they could take it. But everybody ain't saved and can't do that. Some of them gonna call back and do that, and that brings all the problems and some of the situations. So all I'm saying, when does it ever change? When we quit being scared and hold them accountable. Okay, things are improving. Where's the report card? Let's compare last year to this year. Let's see it in writing. How are we improving with women? Are we improving with men? Most of the time, no, we're not. And this is just typical stuff. One guy told me one time, listen, this is us. My grandfather, my great-grandfather, my nephews, we all gonna be. So I said, well, where does that leave the black guys? Well, y'all just we gotta break that. That's where it's coming from. That the family tradition of everybody's a plumber, everybody's a carpenter, we gotta break that. And it will be allowed in without having to go through pure hell. I know, because Faith Coalition sponsored a couple guys who are full-fledged operation engineers today, making good money. But we had to babysit them. We had to tutor them on the math. We had to walk them through, get them calls in the middle of the night when they've been called this and that, anything to pressure them out. Now the latest trick in recent years is we let them get almost there, and then we find a reason not to let them finish. It's happened twice since I've been an alderman.
Yeah. Well, you bring up some good points, and I think you're right on target on that as well. And I think the culture needs to change as it relates, and this is just my opinion. I mean, somebody can debate me on it, but the culture needs to change as it relates to the leadership. Because I do know for a fact, and there are several blacks.
Off as if we can afford to wait for them all the time.
Yeah. And there's several blacks that have been in the union, and they've told me horror stories in terms of being called nigger on the job and all sorts of other crazy stuff. And I will give a shout out to Shivey. Unfortunately, he can't be the EEO office for the entire union. and he's probably got the biggest number of blacks that are within his union. But at the same time, too, I mean, here's a person who's probably been around black people before, too. So his idea of black people is probably going to be a little bit different from somebody that's probably from a small town that has no interaction with black people at all. So I think,
Mike, I'll say too that when Roy asks for like a report card, we got to be ready too for how many of these pastors may have brought names forward, and we have also changed the system with how they come and sign up to come in, and then they don't show up. So we got to be ready for that accountability part too. When you ask, let me see the list of names of who then came to apply and who got started, and then what happened? Where did they go? Why did you leave? Why didn't you show up? Some say they got transportation problems. Some say they got childcare problems. So sometimes it's not always on. And I know, you know, I'm happy that Roy ain't getting on me right now. And he say, well, they support you. So that's why you saying all of this. I'm saying both sides of the fence. We got things that need to be addressed. That's why I said something that we probably can't talk about. And then I said where some changes are coming in too.
But that's what's special about and why it was important for us to bring the caucus together, right?
Yeah.
Because there were some issues that and this is about as transparent of a conversation between us three that people will see. And these are the conversations that we have between ourselves. We see the experience from who we call Papa Smurf Roy, and this is him. He's passionate about it. He's truthful. He's direct, you know. And you have me and who I am, and then you have our Alderwoman Purchase, and we all have different connections and different experiences, and you know, together we are going to really be able to shape some not only policy but also bring some education and different things to our community to help it grow. You know, and take another step to growth in the political game. And that includes the voting and all of those things. Of course, we want that to grow. But that's going to come with education, wealth, and health.
Knowledge.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And Mike, you asking all the right questions because you asking us questions that we don't know. And all three of us are giving different opinions and answers, but still can be respectful. We can still come together. So like Shawn said, this is what's so unique about the group. And I'm like really excited that we're coming together. And we know some people don't like this. Let's be very clear. Some people don't like that photo that Shawn put out and how we're becoming more unified. Me and Shawn is showing up to stuff together. You know, Roy came out one time late at night. We all three got in my car and we went around to where we would see pop-up or supposed to be pop-up parties. We rode through our wards and showed areas that had concern and like, why is this looking like this? Or how can we address this? And did that together at almost 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. So we can see what our community is going through and how they're being handled and what are they doing? They should be at home because it was past Roy bedtime and we was keeping him up too late.
I can believe we all of us been young before, so I believe there needs to be a cut. That's why I defer to the downtown stuff to the two aldermen to have the downtown, but it's the most horrible downtown in the United States. You know, for a young person anyway. You know, for a young person, and they got the nerve to say we're going to bring some UIS students down for what?
Mike, I will
go down there and try to eat on the weekend, Mike. Go down there and try to eat on the weekend.
Mike, I will say with Roy being out with us that night, between all three of us, I'm not from Springfield and I've been here 14 years or so. And then Shawn has been here for a while. And then Roy was born and raised here. That's the difference in this group. And we had some of everyone coming up to us and saying hi. And we glad to see y'all out here. What you doing out here? The same reason you out here. We looking at you like you looking at us. but the police was engaging too. And I thought it was a very powerful photo when Lamar posted that, who is a respected police officer, where people could see someone who looks like them that's in law enforcement. And you really ain't tapped on that question yet, but I suppose you're going to have that coming before you get off this Zoom to ask about that engagement piece between law enforcement, because our trust is not there anymore right now.
But Mike, I think what you're on with this union piece, I think the most frustrating piece for me is their own members, their own brothers They'll tell you things in private. They're Americans. They should be free to talk to who they want to talk to and behave and socialize with, but there is control over them. There is control. Like I said, the unions can be bullies and punitive, and it shouldn't be that way, especially against their members who are paying them dues. But yet, some of the stuff that these guys tell me, you know what I'm saying? And I don't know when and how it's going to change, but I do definitely know it needs to change. Maybe they'll, Jim Dixon, a good friend of mine, big labor guy, says, well, guess what? The country's changing. It's getting darker. And the old white guys are dying off. So the unions have no choice but to start hiring, because that's all that's going to be available is Latinos, blacks, and people of color and women. Ain't going to be too many. And the white guys have been making good money so long, their sons are telling their daddies, oh, hell no, I ain't getting out there. I don't want to do that kind of work. They want to put on a suit and tie and be somewhere else making some other kind of money. And this is what's happening with the unions, to where they're not going to have a choice. They're realizing it more in the bigger cities and in the other places. But in Springfield, Illinois, we're still kind of stuck back with the old ways of doing things. And I think we just will be for a while until their leadership changes. Let me say it like that, till some of them start retiring out and moving on.
One last thing, Mike. So Shawn is in the union that I was in when I was a state employee. I was Teamsters 916. So just switching hats from, you said the trades, but you also got like state employees that's black. And we all know what I just went through with the OEIG. The Teamsters was right by my side every step of the way, from going into the investigation, leading up to the investigation, and the improper of the investigation of how it came out. And I didn't even get to see. I got to read the report just like you all did. So no due fair process neither. So I would say for us as blacks too, to make sure if we're in the state agencies or even in city municipal positions where you have unions that protect you, to get involved, show up to your union meetings, pay those dues, don't opt out. Because when for me, speaking from myself, when that time came, I had representation as I asked for, and I had steps and guidance of how to get me through this process. And even me not being in the union and leaving IDOT when all this stuff came out, still having Teamsters, more than just the president calling to check on me and seeing what did I still want to do next. So it's important too, and I'm sure Shawn could speak to that, with him being now at a state agency, and he makes sure he is off the phone with me at 7 a.m.
Everybody, I got one more question, and we'll wrap this up. I know we've been going for quite a while now, but this ought to be an easy question for you all. Who has been your role model or mentor?
Go ahead, John.
I will start from being at home. So first and foremost, my mother and my father and God, because I wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for them. And you say you're a product. My mother and father still say it to me to this day. You represent us when you walk outside that house every day, when you speak to people, when you treat your elders a certain way. So I will start off with those three, and then moving into my career path that I'm in now. You've heard me say her name multiple times, my godmother, who was a state senator and changed my mind from what I wanted to do as a kid, because I didn't see the value of having a voice, a bubbly personality, being able to connect with people. I wanted to go into the nursing field, but being as an intern in her office, living with her throughout high school, being around her and seeing how this process works in government changed my mind and had me go in another direction that I think has been the most rewarding thing that I have done since I became 35 years old. And to be able to change my mind, be able to help people, be able to be a role model to people when I'm still looking up to others that's providing this path for us to be able to connect and do what we just did. We wouldn't have thought of the Black Caucus. Guess what? It was a Black Caucus before we just formed this, that statewide, that we were able to look at, dang, this is what they did. They just came here during session and brought the Chicago Black Caucus down here. So all the aldermen and alderwomen, they brought them here to meet with the legislators, and me and Alderman Gregory had that opportunity to be recognized in a room because you are in our city as well, and to be talked about with the good things that we're doing, and including everybody around the state. So I would say that it's like a community. That's your best teacher too as well.
Okay. Shawn?
I mean, for me, I mean, it's you know, of course, about Frank, and but you know, my life and how it's went, and so many people who has helped raise me and guide me and been so important. I would have to say all of those people have been great mentors to me, because I don't make it here, you know, if I don't, you know, get to a foster home without a Joe and Verdi Scott, who, you know, say not only we're gonna get you, but we're gonna get the rest of your family, because you know that's what a family should do. You know what I'm saying? And then get adopted by the McNeils and my mom and stuff like that, and then you know, to grow in this role and have Frank and you know, and sit next to Senator Turner, and now I have Roy, and you know, so you know, it's just been a village that has helped me really grow into the person I am today, and I've always been thankful for each and every person, and I've never tried to leave nobody out. I've always been thankful. That's sort of how I am, man. The people that's been good to me, and I know I've had a whole lot of people that love me over the years, despite my faults. So I just thank everybody, you know, that's played a part.
All right. Roy, what about you?
For me, it was probably military. Probably, you know, several of my platoon sergeants and sergeants in the military, because they grew me up. You know, they made me grow up. And if I had my way, you know, Shawn would have did 2 years and then be allowed to, you know, do other things, because it's in those first 2 years in the military that changes hearts and minds, and really makes men become men and know when to be responsible. Still have fun. I mean, the military still parties and does everything everybody else does, but they know when it's time to be held accountable and to be responsible, because they have no choice, because they're in the military. And I just think if every young person had to do high school and then 2 years of service, pick whatever service, Army, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, and then be freed up, I think you see a different United States. You know what I'm saying? So I would give most of my mentorship coming from the military. I always was blessed with a good family. And, you know, a grandfather and my father and all of them did their traditional roles. But it was the military that really got my attention and made me the advocate that I am today. So,
Hey, you all have been great. I really enjoyed this talk, and you guys are being honest and putting your feelings out there. And what I like most about all of this is the fact that you all are working together as Black people, because this is one of the problems I think we have as a people, in terms of us being able to work together. You know, we look at collectively in terms of what we can do, even when we look at our dollars, you know, where we probably got the Black people have probably the 12th or 13th largest economy. And when you look at all our total dollars that we have as a nation here, but yet we spend 98% of those dollars outside our community. So we not only are whites living off 100% of their money, they living off 98% of us as well. So therefore, that's why it's hard for us to be able to gain wealth and get wealth. So what I think is this is a good start in the right direction. Somebody asked, what is the caucus? And it's a form, you guys just formed it. It's the Springfield Alderman Black Caucus. And I'm sure you guys are going to have some things you're going to be announcing or coming up with here shortly or whatever. I want to let you know that, you know, I personally support what you all are trying to do. And basically, you know, you have a platform here. If you ever want to come back on and talk about something or do whatever, just let me know. And you have a platform here to be able to get the message out, because I think it's so important. Somebody else had a question also. They wanted to know, can we look at boutique shops coming downtown? Asheville, North Carolina turned their downtown to a great place for shopping. I mean, again, Yeah, and it boils down to, you know, having entrepreneurs, having programs that are available to have people to be able to go into business. Because small business is basically what runs this country and makes the country work. So I'll say, if anybody got anything, there may be a question I didn't ask that you might want to say, or you know, parting thoughts or whatever.
I'll just say let's be prayerful tomorrow. The video gets released of the incident.
Oh yes,
and you know, try to control what you can control with the young folks. There's a lot of disturbed and angry young folks out there, and we all, as older folks, need to do our job and just help and keep the peace and get people through this hard period for Springfield.
Yep, like I said, you really didn't touch too much with policing or law enforcement, Mike. And I know it's a touchy subject right now, but it was real hard for me to address it on Tuesday night, and just saying everyone heals in different forms, to be respectful of people's emotions and continue to be peaceful. But our community feels like we can't call the police anymore because of what just took place, and it's going to be very graphic for us to see. For me, it hits differently. I'm 35 years old. She was 36 years old. Just being a Black woman and thinking that with the law enforcement is supposed to protect and serve the community, and we'll see it, but there was something that happened there where they did not protect or service that call like they should have, and now our Black men are upset. You know, not all the time you get that often, and people don't pay as much attention when it's guys that get into it and go to jail or a murder happens. We listen to it, but it just seemed like it's hitting a lot different right now for it to be a Black woman.
And unfortunately, a lot of eyes are going to be on Springfield nationally tomorrow, because but I understand that this video is pretty graphic, and naturally, you know, the major networks are going to take it and run with it because it's sensationalism. For the wrong reasons that will be, you know, on the national forefront. So, and I as well would hope that, you know, they would be calm, which I believe it will be. There'll be a lot of anger, I'm sure, but you know, overall,
it won't be what Southern View said.
Yeah. Oh, most definitely not. No.
And I'm making sure I touch and be specific on the name, because it's not SPD that's putting something out. It's Southern View that said that. And I'm pretty sure they're going to still think the same thing after the video comes out. And emotions are going to be high about the situation, but it's not going to be high to say, let's go bust windows out and set stuff on fire. Now, we did have something that happened in the park yesterday, Como Cox Park, since I brought up the word fire, and Alderman Gregory went and checked it out and stuff. It was just very unfortunate, and just the timing of me spelling out that word to you. It just seemed like things are just happening over and over. And the best thing that people can do, and I'm saying the word white people can do, is make sure you hold people accountable, because if the roles was reversed, we would be sitting up here talking about this person was wrong. So make sure you holding people accountable too in your own backyard when you see that they doing something wrong too, and make sure you just have some compassion for us as well. This is the fine time for us to become as one and become united too. I know we have things where it's like we've been fighting all this time for it, but they play a major part in this too as well.
Mm-hmm. Hey, you all, thank you all for coming on the new Springfield Alderman Black Caucus. You guys keep moving, because one more hop, you're going to be on top.
Did you see this?
I can't see it.
Can you see it, Mike?
No.
This is Know Your Price.
Oh, okay.
Valuing Black property and lives. So I want you to look that up. Google it.
I will.
Your Price.
Yeah, I will do that.
Since you're such a reader, I see your background. So here's another book to get.
Okay. All right. Like I say, one more hop, y'all going to be on top. So hey, thank you all for coming on the show. I've enjoyed it. It's been informative. You guys have put a lot of information out there. I mean, the show will be available. Anybody wants to come back and watch it, it'll be on YouTube. It's on LinkedIn. It's on Facebook. It'll also be loaded up on Instagram. So for anybody that missed it, just tell them to go back to Facebook, and they can, look at the reruns of the show. And again, we probably need to make this something we do every month, every other month, or whatever. Because as we go along, there's going to be a lot of other things coming forth, and there are some things that are happening possibly in the housing market. I really can't speak to it right now, but there's some talk going on right now. Let me put it like that to try to see how something can work. So, hey, thank you all for being on the show.
Mike.
I've enjoyed it. You guys got my number. If anything I can do to help y'all, and let's get something done in Springfield. I'm rounding third base in my career. I'm getting close to, I'm getting close to home plate. So, I still think, I might have one more lick left in me. We just got to make your licks count when you get older. So,
let's do it.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Hold on for just a second. I'm going to end the stream and just make sure we got everything on. So thank you all.
All right. Bye.